Mr. Speaker, thank you for affording me the opportunity to speak to the budget delivered by the Honorable Prime Minister and Parliamentary Representative for Castries East. Mr. Speaker, I hope today that I get double time, knowing that some people do not want to speak, so I will gladly welcome this time. So I will take my time, I will navigate, and according to my learned colleague, I will try to get a smooth landing. Mr. Speaker, one of my famous quotes is, "I expect to pass through this world but once. Any good thing, therefore, that I can do, or any kindness I can show to any fellow human being, let me do it now. Let me not defer nor neglect it, for I shall not pass this way again." I want to thank my family, my close friends, my colleagues in the House, in this honorable House and in Cabinet, and all the constituents in Babono, those from St. Lucia, in the diaspora, regionally and internationally. Mr. Speaker, as we are approaching Labor Day, I take this opportunity to wish all St. Lucians a happy Labor Day, for they have toiled and labored out there to develop this beautiful island of ours. I want to congratulate our Archbishop Gabriel Mazet of Castries on his installation last Sunday. Mr. Speaker, I did not see the dance in Monrepo. Mr. Speaker, let me remind you that on Tuesday, April 26, 2022, was exactly 9 months since this government was elected to office. What a glorious day of deliverance for the St. Lucian people. Mr. Speaker, this budget was delivered just like a baby, born, and it only happened after we went into labor. Mr. Speaker, this baby, the budget, represents a new birth. It's beautiful, full of life, promising, and has great hope for growth in the future. Mr. Speaker, let me again thank the people of Babono for the confidence they expressed in me and affording me the opportunity to represent them in this honorable House. Mr. Speaker, I will in the next few minutes articulate the critical areas in this masterpiece of a budget as presented by the Honorable Prime Minister. And I'll expand and provide legs to many policy positions in relation to the Ministry of the Public Service, Home Affairs, Labor and Gender Affairs. Mr. Speaker, this budget speaks extensively to a number of issues relating to the different departments in Home Affairs, in the areas of the police force, the fire service, borderline correctional facility, immigration, probation and parole, youth at risk, and the marine unit. Mr. Speaker, I am basically speaking to safety and security of our people in St. Lucia, as highlighted on page 51 to 52 in the budget address of 2022-2023. Mr. Speaker, the Department of Home Affairs means Home Affairs. Mr. Speaker, The work of this department is instrumental and pivotal to both citizen security and the safety of visitors to our beautiful island. The Royal St. Lucia Police Force focuses a lot on national security. The main priority of the police force is citizen security, and the Department of Home Affairs provides the necessary support to ensure that the police can meet its national security mandate. In the 2022-23 financial year, the Royal St. Lucia Police Force continues to focus on citizen security, geared towards strengthening effective strategies to combat serious crime. Mr. Speaker, I take this opportunity to once again express our condolences to the family of the late PC 863, Nathan Tibet, and to the members of the Royal St. Lucia Police Force. That was a sad moment for all of us in St. Lucia. Mr. Speaker, the Royal St. Lucia Police Force in St. Lucia has made a renewed commitment to continue to engage in a process aimed at establishing, consolidating, and protecting the population, not only through traditional channels of enforcing law and order, but also through citizen engagement, exploring innovative tools and technology to gather intelligence and intelligence-based policing. We will explore innovative tools and technology to assist them in carrying out their duties. The Royal St. Lucia Police Force, through relevant units such as Community Relations Branch, the Community Policing Initiative is working assiduously on reviving and reinforcing the message of civic order and responsibility to make meaningful strides in national security and crime reduction. Mr. Speaker, generally the work on citizen security is ongoing with continued collaboration between the members of the communities and key stakeholders in a combined effort to reduce crime in St. Lucia. Hence, the Royal St. Lucia Police Force will continue to make strides in the reduction of crime as it attempts to attain its goal of a 45% reduction in serious crime in the medium term. In addition to the current strategies used by the Royal St. Lucia Police Force, the government of St. Lucia is committed to support the police by providing resources in this financial year. For example, we are looking at the retrofitting of temporary holding cells at the police headquarters. And my fellow colleagues from Miku North did articulate some of these issues earlier. We are looking at repairs to the roof of the Viewfort Police Station for general repair works to the police facilities island-wide, for police equipment, for additional vehicles to the police, and they have received quite a few so far. And the government has pledged additional funding to provide the police with equipment and transportation to do their work. Mr. Speaker, when we look at the situation of police, especially with regards to transportation, I wonder whether the previous government of the United Workers' Party expected the police to walk or hire or get on a transit bus to carry out their duties. Because there are so many vehicles that these policemen need to do their work. Mr. Speaker, this government has made a commitment to provide the police with the tools that they need to do their work. So they cannot blame the tools. We either blame the handler of the tool, but we will give them the tools that they need. The objective is to increase the mobility of the police in responding to distress calls. This project seeks to replace 130 depleted vehicles needing replacement for the Royal St. Lucia Police Force. 130 vehicles need to be replaced. what happened in the last 5 years, Mr. Speaker. Were you around? Were you in St. Lucia? Mr. Speaker, this is a clear indication that the police force was under-resourced and underserviced by the last government. The money from the annual balls to raise funds was certainly inadequate or did not cut it. You cannot have a little annual ball to give the police a few little deaths and a little and say that is how you support law and order. It cannot work. Mr. Speaker, the government of St. Lucia calls on every citizen to assist the police in reaching their goals, because as responsible citizens, we should partner with the police to help reduce crime. St. Lucia belongs to all of us. This is our home and we need to feel safe. Mr. Speaker, this government has made provision in this budget to upgrade and repair police stations to bring about more comfortable working conditions as an island-wide initiative embarked for execution during this upcoming financial year. And Mr. Speaker, if you had accompanied me on a tour to visit the current Grosile police station and to see where our officers sleep, tears would run down your eyes. Mr. Speaker, repair works are scheduled to commence in the upcoming fiscal year for the Viewfort police station, which is a top priority for this government. Renovation works on the Viewfort police station are expected to be completed by the end of this financial year. The initiative is expected to commence in the first quarter of the upcoming financial year, 2022-2023. Another major initiative is the construction of the Grosile Divisional Headquarters. This project is expected to commence within the first quarter of the new financial year. Funding for the project is using a bullet arrangement between the government of St. Lucia and NIPRO. This project is estimated at $36 million. Mr. Speaker, while we speak on resources for the police, one of the main areas which will be addressed in this financial year is the development of the human resource capacity of our police officers. And this will involve training and upskilling of our officers. And I say this, Mr. Speaker, because as you may be aware, the previous government, represented by two of their colleagues in this house, in the last financial year, had $0 in the budget for training of officers. This will be corrected because this government takes law and order very seriously. Mr. Speaker, I move quickly to border control. Border control is a proposed agency within the Department of Home Affairs and National Security, which will create synergies through the marriage of customs and excise, marine unit, immigration, and quarantine. For the 2022-23 financial year, the government has made provisions to pay for a yearly licensing fee for border management system software and procurement of required equipment. It is a costly exercise, but we understand that it's important to create an environment where our people feel safe. Mr. Speaker, the St. Lucia Fire Service. The fire service continues to improve the working conditions at fire stations throughout the island. Hence, in the 2023 financial year, the government is committed to the upkeep of the fire stations. The much needed repairs should be completed by the end of this fiscal year, as this administration continues to improve the conditions in which these frontline workers operate. Mr. Speaker, the St. Lucia Fire Service has an aging fleet of vehicles. We are coming again. We just finished with the police, now we are in the fire, the same story. Fire equipment, they showed me the uniforms, they have to go into the flames. They are no longer. They are very expensive equipment, but they actually keep our officers safe. So they need this equipment. Therefore, during this financial year, we will explore alternative sources for funding and procurement of replacement vehicles and equipment. The St. Lucia Fire Service continues to deliver an exemplary level of service to the public. And I believe we owe these men and women of the soil a debt of gratitude, especially for the extent to which they were stretched during the COVID-19 period. They deserve better resources to execute their duties. Mr. Speaker, we move quickly now to Borderley Correctional Facility. The Borderley Correctional Facility has an aging plant that is in dire need of repairs. And Mr. Speaker, you will see the litany continues. We started with police, we went into fire, now we are at Borderley. The story remains the same. These units, these institutions were under-serviced, under-resourced, neglected. At least we know for sure. A lot of that happened during the last 5 years. Mr. Speaker, during the 2022-23 financial year, major repairs are expected to be carried out at the Borderley Correctional Facility, including repairs to the fencing, kitchen area, and electrical works for the safety of its officers, inmates, and by extension, the general public. For the upcoming budget period, Mr. Speaker, there will be the removal and replacement of chain links, fencing, and replacement of cell locks and worn-out keys at the facility, replacement of skylights and repairs to 8 metal stairs, renovation of staff quarters, purchase and installation of hot water heaters for laundry, kitchen, medical units, replacement of toilets, and also replacement of furniture and equipment for staff. This is a government that cares about its people. Whether you are behind bars or you are free, you are under the responsibility of this government, and it is a government for all. Mr. Speaker, the correctional facility faces a myriad of issues that can't all be resolved this financial year, given the fiscal challenge we currently face. And Mr. Speaker, I'm sure you would have heard that when this government came in and we examined the cabinet, it looked like rats had been there. They excreted, they pee, and they left. So now we had to mop up, we had to clean up, and we had to restore. However, this government plans to take incremental steps to resolve the challenges of Borderley, with the hope that with every financial year, Borderley will get closer and closer to its optimal operations. This institution, Mr. Speaker, has been neglected for far too long. I visited the Borderley Correctional Facility and has first-hand information regarding the issues and what exists there currently. The government of St. Lucia is thankful to the Republic of China on Taiwan for the support in funding a program to help develop skills for women inmates. And the plan is to extend it to male inmates. So male inmates will also benefit from the program. Mr. Speaker, in an effort to address the numerous problems and challenges experienced at Borderley, a committee was established to review the operations and management of the Borderley Correctional Facility and to report to me and the Cabinet so we can address some of the festering and burning concerns within the correctional systems in St. Lucia. This report is almost ready, Mr. Speaker, and this will guide the way forward for the institution. Mr. Speaker, Probation and Parole Services Unit. The Probation and Parole Services Unit is one whose praises have not been sung loud enough. To the ordinary St. Lucian, it is merely another government office. But those who understand the magnitude of their contribution can only describe probation and parole as a giant pillar in the smooth functioning of society. I applaud them and encourage them to keep up the excellent work. Mr. Speaker, the Probation and Parole Services is now located in a new premise. They have new premises to address pressing occupational safety and health concerns and provide an enhanced quality of service to the public. The Castries office deals with the 1st Judicial District. Probation and Parole also has a southern office that deals with the 2nd Judicial District. Mr. Speaker, under the parole component of its mandate, 3 individuals have been granted parole from 5 parole hearings. The parolees are supervised by the unit's parole officers. The feedback provided at the most recent update is quite encouraging, as we are told that these individuals are reintegrating very well in the society. Mr. Speaker, the new Child Justice Act number 9 of 2018 governs how the unit deals with children in conflict with the law and has placed a greater responsibility on the resources of the Probation and Parole Services unit with respect to the probation officers. Probation officers are mandated by said law to deal exclusively with children in conflict with the law. As a result, it is the goal of the unit to put in place juvenile probation officers in order to meet this important mandate. The unit has a fundamental role in the implementation of the Child Justice Act number 9 of 2018 and therefore requires resources to be made available for successful implementation. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, Probation and Parole prepares pre-sentencing and social inquiry reports for all courts in St. Lucia. They also conduct mediation services, and in 2021, 284 mediation sessions were conducted, and 218 were resolved, while 66 were unresolved. Unresolved matters are again referred to the court's attention. It is my duty to continue to give the support possible to the unit throughout the financial year. Mr. Speaker, there are major concerns with vulnerable young people. There has been a recent increase in criminal activities in St. Lucia, and the majority of crimes are committed by the youth. These crimes include, but not limited to, theft, burglary, armed robbery, and murder, which are very serious and major crimes. Mr. Speaker, of tremendous concern is the average age of criminals is decreasing, and this phenomenon has reached an alarming level, requiring immediate attention. Mr. Speaker, the Department of Home Affairs, in an effort to strategize, has developed crime prevention measures, including a youth at risk program. This program seeks to provide better policies and schemes to engage the wider community, including families, non-governmental organizations, community groups, and law enforcement. The Youth at Risk program involves internal ministerial collaboration to pull together resources to address issues surrounding youth requiring care and protection and those engaging in criminal activities. The government of St. Lucia will provide the necessary financial and technical support through this program in an effort to prevent and reduce youth engagement in crime. Through this effort, the overall objective is to divert youth from violence and illegal actions and to accommodate them in the youth economy to foster a more productive lifestyle void of criminal activities. The Youth at Risk program will therefore serve as a strategy for crime prevention and reduction. Mr. Speaker, crime fighting strategy, Youth at Risk services. This government has created a youth delinquency services program called the Youth at Risk Services within the Department of Home Affairs. The Youth at Risk Services is responsible for the delivery of support to youth at risk, the juvenile supervision. The Department of Home Affairs appointed an interministerial committee to inform of the programs and baskets of services to be delivered by these units. Currently, probation services supervise 12 young males, and in 2021, 28 males and 10 females were sentenced to probation. The Youth at Risk Service Unit will help augment the services of probation while assisting with care and protection, as well as support services to vulnerable youth. The goal is to make a meaningful contribution to youth at risk and to allow them a smooth transition into the youth economy, thus becoming productive members of society. Mr. Speaker, the Department of Home Affairs will reactivate the interagency framework to develop greater synergy among the security units in the department. With this entity, all the law enforcement agencies will work together to maximize resources for greater efficiency and to be more effective, especially in combating crime and maintaining law and order to make St. Lucia safe and peaceful, a society for all to live in harmony. Mr. Speaker, we move quickly to the Department of the Public Service. And the budget address on page 23 to 24, the Minister of Finance articulated clearly some of the new directions that the public service will be heading in and we have been involved in. The Department of the Public Service is the hub in the middle of the wheel and the heartbeat of government and good governance. This key department needs serious attention, and if it is not addressed, it will die through heart failure. Mr. Speaker, the Department of the Public Service is long awaiting major reform and modernization. From 2013, there has been a draft public service regulation and a public service management bill sitting around in the ministry. Mr. Speaker, we need to finalize this bill, these regulations, to give legitimacy to our plans for modernization that is in keeping with the government's commitment to deliver efficient and effective service to St. Lucians and the general public. Mr. Speaker, public sector modernization. Following on from its 2013 to 2018 National Information and Communication Technology Policy and Strategy, the government of St. Lucia continues its commitment to sustainable national development, leveraging digital technologies as an enabler. And I said, Mr. Speaker, from 2013, that was the vision of the St. Lucia Labour Party. Mr. Speaker, In the current St. Lucia Economic Recovery and Resilience Plan, moving from pandemic to recovery with collective action, our government aims to stimulate St. Lucia's economy to ensure that our citizens are protected while supporting the survival and eventual future growth of our business sector. And I know my colleague in commerce will like that, because we have to work in harmony in government. Mr. Speaker, considering this response, the St. Lucia Digital Development Strategy seeks to articulate our approach to developing a digital St. Lucia, which will support capacity building amongst our citizens and society, businesses, and the public sector, which will in turn accelerate our move to a resilient, competitive digital economy, especially amongst our key economic sectors. Mr. Speaker, having reviewed our current digital landscape, it is recognized that we have made progress in our efforts to promote and create a digital economy. Progress can be seen by the implementation of a number of ICT-related projects, such as the Caribbean Regional Communications Infrastructure Program, the Digital Government Integrated Services Platform, DigiGov, and the World Bank-funded Caribbean Digital Transformation Project, Digital Caribbean. Mr. Speaker, in June 2020, we launched a Digital Government Integrated Service Platform, DigiGov project, which, as a strategic project, seeks to create a digital government by using ICT as a tool to integrate public sector processes with a view to improve services to citizens and businesses efficiently and safely, whilst reducing the overall cost of government's operation. Mr. Speaker, the project was designed around three components to develop: digital enabling environment, digital government infrastructure platforms and services, and digital skills and technology adoption. The platform is designed to enhance the provisioning of service delivery whilst maximizing the efficiency of government's data assets through the integration of government operation. ICT infrastructure and services. DigiGov forms part of a larger strategic ICT development agenda, the National ICT Policy and Sectoral Alignment Strategy, which puts into motion a vision for digital transformation and future state of public service delivery. It is developed to transform the interaction between government agencies with their constituents through data sharing across the public and private sector. Mr. Speaker, driving this modernization effort, it is the need to establish digital solutions and services that are easily accessible and more responsive to user needs. The deployment of DigiGov would facilitate and directly accelerate the country's development agenda. Aggregating 154 public service across 7 ministries and 13 agencies in a central online hub using a phased approach with a priority timeline stretching over 2 years, 2020 to 2022. Providing a robust platform that conforms to international standards and supports end-to-end services. Streamlining and integrating business processes to create greater public value. Supporting the establishment of a national authentication framework to facilitate digital identity management in accordance with relevant law. Mr. Speaker, to date, the introduction of DigiGov within the Division of Transport, Ministry of Health, and Civil Status Registry has led the way to modernizing government's digital governance through the delivery of online services, training, and the development of new capacities and skills. Since the launch of DigiGov, there has been over 40,000 transactions on the platform, with 37% of transactions emanating online. This has resulted in 1. Reduction of processing time for drivers-related services from 3 months to 10 business days within the Division of Transport. Insurance verification of COVID-19 digital vaccination certificate by the Ministry of Health. Availability of birth and death certificates online. During the height of COVID-19, the availability of these online services remained unaffected despite the scale down of operations at the Division of Transport. Mr. Speaker, Phase 3 of DigiGov is scheduled to be deployed in May 2022 and will focus on the services of the registry of companies and intellectual property. The successful rollout of the online business registry will allow individuals and businesses the convenience of conducting name searches, reservations, business registration, and application for a tax account and national insurance cooperation number, just to name a few. Mr. Speaker, of the DigiGov platform came at an opportune time to deal with some of the challenges and constraints imposed by COVID-19 pandemic. The realization of government's digital transformation will greatly enhance government's business continuity and capacity to provide, I said DigiGov, the concept of modernization started in 2013. 2013 it started. So there is nothing to gain, no cheap points on there. Mr. Speaker, the realization of government's digital transformation will greatly enhance government's businesses, continuity and capacity to provide the public with online services as a result of responses to COVID-19. This will be achieved through a cohesive approach with the adaptation and implementation of digital governance, infrastructure, legislation, and services across various sectors. Mr. Speaker, e-government current states. Over the past years, the government of St. Lucia has made concrete efforts and commitments to leapfrog the development of critical ICT infrastructure and the maturity of its digital economy through its e-government agenda. In 2009, the government, recognizing the critical role of e-government in enhancing its governance and provisioning of public service delivery, announced the establishment of the Division of Public Service Modernization as the centralized agency responsible for coordinating, managing, and monitoring all ICT initiatives, programs programs specified by National E-Government Agenda. Through the approval of National ICT Policy and Sectoral Strategy for 2013 to 2018, the Department of Public Service Modernization sought to catalyze the use of cutting-edge technologies, policies, and modernized leg framework to lay the groundwork for the expansion of the digital ecosystem. And what I like about this, Mr. Speaker, I look at the starting date of 2013 when the Labour Party was in government. And you notice 2013, and we are in 2022. And when you look at the relay with Usain Bolt, you get a strong sprinter to start the race, and you get Bolt to end it. And the Labour Party is here to end the race. And that is why we we are going to cross the line now. We started it and will finish it. Mr. Speaker, the establishment of the National ICT Policy, which was meant to improve quality of life of citizens and businesses, has been one of the primary catalysts for progressive improvements and growth in ICT development and utilization in St. Lucia. From 2013, as part of its strategic goal to invest in ICT as an enabler for sustainable development and to achieve equal access to public information, the government sought to increase access to broadband and ICT resources through the establishment of 8 community access centers in low internet penetration communities across St. Lucia. Yes. To expand on government's commitment to improving access to broadband, in 2016, GINet project was launched with an aim to augment the internet penetration by increasing access points to high-quality broadband through the deployment of over 60 Wi-Fi spots in 5 low internet penetration districts. To date, over 70 access points have been deployed in 6 communities, serving a combined population of over 20,000 residents. Mr. Speaker, in 2014, Labour Party was in power. The government of St. Lucia published its web portal, www.govt.lc, as the primary model medium to provide the public with information and downloadable forms of public services. Progressive. To provide an alternate channel to access government information and to strengthen its relationship with citizens, in 2014, the government also launched a contact center 311 toll-free to assist citizens and businesses in resolving issues of queries pertaining to public service. Further to this, the launch of St. Lucia's open data portal, www.data.government.lc, in 2015, and the establishment of an open data policy had made significant improvements in the availability of public data, boosted public sector performance through data sharing and collaboration, and has promoted an integrated and transparent government information to all stakeholders. Mr. Speaker, St. Lucia's ICT infrastructure has also seen progress over the past few years. Reports from International Telecommunication Union 2018 highlighted as increased modern penetration rates by 4% and mobile subscription by 5%, 185,000 subscription. And if Labour Party was in power for the last 5 years, that percentage would have been much higher, Mr. In comparison to 2017, in 2018, telecommunication operations also report an increased capital spending in investment by 58%. Now you see where 49 million, representing the largest investment in small islands developing states, SIDS, and were largely due to the upgrade and expansion of long-term evolution network. The steady increase in the uptake of mobile service over the past years presented a unique opportunity for government to explore and use of mobile technologies to deliver services. Mr. Speaker, the public service has to constantly focus on training strategies that will continue to retool our citizens to keep them current and relevant. COVID-19 has taught us a very powerful lesson, and that is working remotely. For me, this is nothing new, as I have done this for over 20 years. Mr. Speaker, Organizational Development Division. Mr. Speaker, the Organizational Development Division is required to effectively manage organizational systems and structures and workings of public administration. It is also charged with the responsibility of overseeing and supporting strategic organizational development interventions within line agencies to enable continuous improvement in operations and service delivery. Achieving this mandate involves the use of scientific approaches to identify deficiencies in policies, systems, processes, and procedures, making recommendations for relevant interventions.
Member Babano, you have 15 minutes left.
Hello?
You have 15 minutes left.
Okay, 15 minutes left. Whose time will I borrow? Okay, Mr. Speaker, let me see. Yes, I need some time borrowed, Mr. Speaker. I will rely on my colleagues too, because I don't know department to say I didn't mention their department. Mr. Speaker, we look at the Labor Department, and as I mentioned, and the Prime Minister made reference on page 6 in his report, and I will read the little paragraph that excites me there. It says that the government stands on the shoulders of those leaders in their call for bread, freedom, and justice, which echoed in the halls of the trade union movement and gave birth in 1950 to the mother of all political parties in this country, the St. Lucia Labour Party, unquote. Mr. Speaker, the Labour Department, I am pleased to say that, Mr. Speaker, that this budget speaks to the workers of this country. It is a budget that is friendly to workers. And when I heard the Honorable Prime Minister spoke about the waiver on vehicles up to $10,000 for traveling officers of the public service, that is a friendly clause, Mr. Speaker. I heard the Prime Minister in the budget spoke about ensuring that the promised salary increase to public servants has been paid, Mr. Speaker. That is a government that is friendly to workers. And when I see the Prime Minister spoke about we will negotiate with the public servants, and then the budget in this address made a commitment to pay the majestic workers and the LIAC workers, Mr. Speaker. That is a government that is concerned about workers in St. Lucia. And Mr. Speaker, with regards to the Department of Labor, for too long, this department has been neglected and undermined. For too long, it seems that certain functions of society have had little to do. No regard for the Department of Labor. For too long, in some quarters, public perception of the Department of Labor has been nothing but insignificant. And for too long, the Department of Labor itself nurtured a culture that inspired aversion, distaste, and repulsion. Notwithstanding the above, it is evident that the department continues to play a pivotal role in the maintenance of a sound industrial relations climate in the country, a factor which lends towards productive workforce and allures investors. It is therefore apt and timely, Mr. Speaker, that the Department of Labor be given a new direction. It is now time to rebuild and restructure the Department of Labor and to make it one of the flagship departments of government, especially under a Labour Party government. With that in mind, Mr. Speaker, it is imperative that the department comes into sharp focus during the next government cycle. More so, it will be intuitive of the government to implement a program of modernization of the Department of Labor in keeping with its thrust of putting people first. This program should focus on embracing all workers and employers to improve the overall industrial relations climate and to reduce unemployment. With a new focus, the Department of Labor will be placed to ensure the following: decent work agenda for all workers in St. Lucia that incorporates normalized hours of work, overtime pay, sustainable wages, vacation, respect of workers and employers' rights, fair, livable wage, we're looking at the minimum wage, speedy resolution of industrial relation disputes, prosecution of individuals in violation of the Labor Act, and adherence of occupational safety and health standards. Mr. Speaker, there was a report done, an audit report done by the last administration of the Labor Department. And the findings of the report is very, very gloomy, and it calls for us to develop a strategic plan to guide the way forward and restructure the Labor Department. Mr. Speaker, the Labor Department has several units, and these units also have their own challenges. We are pleased that in this budget, government has put an allocation for us to purchase a unit to engage in occupational safety and health, because we have to go in the workplace and assess how these environments how these environments reflect good working standards. And without this equipment, it is impossible for the workers to go in the work environment and make a good assessment. We also have the work permit. The work permit unit has its challenges, and we have to strengthen that unit, because too many times we see people who request work permits, and we have people in St. Lucia who can do the work, and we do not have a system to verify whether the employers actually go through the right channel. If you try to get an employee from India and to drive, if it's a specialized vehicle that we don't have drivers here in St. Lucia, I can understand, Mr. Speaker, but not an ordinary driver coming all the way from India, depriving a St. Lucian of a little driving job. We cannot afford to allow that to happen. Mr. Speaker, as we move quickly to the employment unit, I need to let you know, Mr. Speaker, that yesterday morning at 7:30, I was on the airport at George F. Charles to see the first batch of women, Canadian seasonal farm workers, going to work in Canada. This is the first time we have had women recruited to work on the Canadian farm. And this is history made under the St. Lucia Labour Party. And I had a very good discussion with them. I encouraged them to be ambassadors for St. Lucia and make us proud so that they can open doors for other women. Mr. Speaker, as we move quickly, we have the minimum livable wage, which is spoken to in the budget, and the Prime Minister and Minister of Finance and Department of Labor, we will start engaging discussions in this area. And Mr. Speaker, there has been quite a few recommendations for the review of certain sections of the Labor Act. So that we will be revisiting and looking at it, and to see how we can make our employers and our workers happy by ensuring that they have regulations that are in keeping with labor laws. And as I mentioned, Mr. Speaker, we are also in the process of finalizing the occupational safety and health policy in the workplace, so all employers and employees can abide by this. Mr. Speaker, I do not want to forget gender affairs. Gender affairs has opened doors for St. Lucia, and I think the St. Lucia Labour Party government stands very well in the region. The Prime Minister and his team has been applauded as a government that is very progressive and very sensitive to gender. And that actually was clearly articulated after the passage of the Domestic Violence Act. Mr. Speaker, before 9 months, the Labour Party was able to deliver on this important regulation. And what has happened, Mr. Speaker, is that this act, this bill, dominated the St. Lucia media for 3 weeks. No news item stays for 3 weeks in St. Lucia as headline. And this remained headline news for 3 weeks. The Pajora letter too? Mr. Speaker, I need to commend the Prime Minister. And when I speak of the Prime Minister and his gender sensitivity, I said the only opportunity he had to make it happen was when he appointed his senators. I said the Prime Minister did show demonstration that he wants to see gender balance, and where he had that authority, he exercised it, and he exercised it well, and that he has been applauded in the region for that, and I carry the flag and hail him for that. Mr. Speaker, I look at this.
Governor, you have 5 minutes left.
Yes, with my 5 minutes, Mr. Speaker, I look at this budget, Mr. Speaker, and all I need to do as we implement the programs of this government is to ensure that we have disaggregated data. If we have disaggregated data, Mr. Speaker, we will see how many men are involved in all the government programs. And once we see that, we will see which gender is disadvantaged. In areas where we see fewer men, we have to improve that number. In areas where we see fewer women, we have to improve that number. And that is what we call gender sensitivity. Mr. Speaker, in the gender department, we have decided to engage in some major activities that will bring about gender sensitivity to government's program. One, we have established a women's parliamentary caucus that will examine government's programs, government's budget, and see how gender sensitive it is. There will be gender focal points in each ministry and each department. And we will ensure that there is gender mainstreaming in government's program. Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to inform you that after the passage of the Domestic Violence Act, it has opened the door for St. Lucia. And the door that it has opened is one where there is a lot of resources coming to St. Lucia to engage in education and training for gender-based violence, for empowering women and men in business and in a number of areas. And I am saying that there are many laws that we have on our books that are archaic, they need to be reviewed, and the international community is looking at St. Lucia and see whether we are willing to do what they perceive or we consider to be the right thing for our citizens. And with this, Mr. Speaker, I need to let you know that we are working on empowering both men and women. We are securing the economic support to develop skills for men and women, and the gender department will have to be expanded because they have quite a bit of financial resources that are coming to the department, and we have to deliver. They will provide institutional support, financial support, and human resource support for St. Lucia. And I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, with this, we are well on our way. Mr. Speaker, since I have just 5 more minutes, and those who do not want to speak...
Actually, it's 2 minutes. Huh?
Oh, it's 2 minutes. I was adding upside down and inside out. Mr. Speaker, those who do not want to speak have not granted me the time. I will have to go on the road and do a town hall in Babono, like I see some people do, for me to finish the speech. But Mr. Speaker, since the Honorable Prime Minister ended his budget address with a biblical quote, I want to follow in the footsteps of great leaders. And Mr. Speaker, I will quote that one of my favorite words in the Psalms is, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Whom shall I be afraid?" I had fainted unless I had believed to see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Wait on the Lord, be of good courage, and he shall strengthen thy heart. Wait, I say, on the Lord. In conclusion, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the management and staff of the Department of the Public Service, Home Affairs, Labor, and Gender Affairs for their support. My permanent secretaries, my deputy permanent secretaries, heads of department, and all the employees in the ministry. They have been working extremely hard. And my job and the job of the government is to give them the support, give them the encouragement for them to continue. Mr. Speaker, the constituents of Babodo, I want to thank them for their tremendous support. I promised that once they made me their choice, I would be their voice. I told them, if you say my choice, my voice. Your choice, your voice. Our choice, our voice. Today, I will continue to be your voice in this house. Mr. Speaker, thank you for your patience and for listening. I rest my case.